So last week we talked about the applications of reincarnation in network healers and in healthcare. Well, today we're going to have a similar lesson, but for karma. So what are the applications of karma, but specifically in network healers? How do we use our knowledge of karma in network healers? And this is lesson 35. Let's have a look. Okay, here we go. Lovely. So lesson 35, karma part 2, because if you remember, we've already had a lesson on karma. In fact, you could say we've had 3, but the first time we introduced karma was in the self-healing course, in the emotional layer, when we introduced the concept of karma and the karma emotion engine and all that. And then we had a lesson on karma, karma lesson 1. And I'm going to go through a little recap of that in just a second, so don't worry. And this is karma 2. So we have 2 lessons on karma in this FASTRAC course. And this is applications. So karma 2, applications. How do we use karma in network healers? Because there's lots of applications to karma. Karma is one of the most important things that we can actually know about in healing. We'll talk about that a bit later on. And there's various things that we can do once we know about karma. But first of all, let's talk about karma 1, lesson 1 on karma. This is the main bulk of the lesson that we've been through already, quite some time ago now, probably last year, in fact. So we talked about epigenetics, and the reason why epigenetics is part of that lesson is because some people or some cultures have had an understanding of various types of karma, where now in science we can actually start matching them together and realizing that various ancient cultural ideas actually map on to new scientific understanding, and epigenetics is one of them. Epigenetics is the idea that, or it's the concept in science and genetics that genes can get switched on and off throughout the course of your life, and various things can impact those genes being switched on and off during your life. And as genes have so much influence on the regulation and the building of the human body, then it's a very important concept when it comes to healing. So, for example, an emotional state can actually impact our genetics. Nutrition can impact our genetics. Our general environment contributing to our lifestyle can impact our epigenetics. And these epigenetic changes can actually be passed on to our offspring. Therefore, for example, emotional state can be passed on, or emotional memory can be passed on to our offspring. This is down the DNA ancestral line. So this fits with some cultural descriptions of ancestral karma, for example. So we talked about that. Then we talked about karma emotion, and karma emotion being the main bulk of the lesson. This is the type of karma that most people are talking about when we use the word karma. So we talked about what karma emotion is. Karma is a emotion plus a context that surrounds that emotion. For example, arachnophobia was an example we used. The fear of spiders. Fear plus spiders. Spiders is the emotion. Sorry, spiders is the context. So then we talked about basic and moral karmas and how karmas evolved from millions of years ago in early animals and started with basic karmas. And these are survival-related emotional memories. That's what karma is, emotional memory. Handed over incarnation after incarnation. So the basic survival ones, which then evolved into moral karmas, which is when animals started to live in social groups and people evolved, humans evolved and started living in social groups. Moral karmas evolved to keep a collective of animals or people working and living together in an efficient manner. Morality, that's where morality was born, really, in our species. It keeps people functioning together and it benefits the species as a whole. And we talked about the weight of karma, i.e. light, medium or heavy, or you could call that a severity of karma. How strong is the karma? How strong are the emotions that are going to be generated from processing that? And then the karma emotion engine. So most of the lesson, or at least half the lesson, was dedicated to the karma emotion engine cycle and the anatomy to do with it in the lower mind. Now, we're not going to spend much time on that today because we've talked about that quite a lot already. So that was lesson 1 on karma. Quick recap. Let's go back to lesson 2, this lesson, applications. So the first application that we want to talk about is burning karma. This is probably one of the most important things that we can do in Network Healers. And let's start with burning other people's karma. Now, this is perfectly possible with energy healing. Now, higher mind, it has to be higher mind healing or non-intention healing. Lower mind healing or intention healing can't do this. It's a more advanced form of energy healing that the higher mind has to do. So let's talk about it. Burning other people's karma. What do we need to know, first of all? What do we need to know about the karma before we can help somebody with their karma? And by the way, this is assuming that we are allowed to help somebody with their karma, because if you remember in last week's lesson, we talked about reincarnation and whether we will be able to or not. And there could be various reasons why we can't actually burn someone's karma if it's part of their life plan. But let's assume that we can burn somebody's karma away. So what do we need to know about that karma? Well, here we're talking about the karmic personality spectrum, because the karmic personality spectrum is the storehouse of karma in that person. Now, we have talked about this a fair bit already as well. In the anatomy lessons, we talked about how the karmic personality spectrum is laid bare on the skin of the energy body. And these are the things that we need to know. We need to know the emotion plus the context. We need to know the chakra category. Don't worry, I'm going to go through these in more detail now. The chakra category. We need to know the characteristic itself that is causing all this karma. Now, sometimes the context can be the same as the characteristic. For example, arachnophobia, and let's say fear of speaking, fear of public speaking, for example, is fear is the emotion, the context is speaking. The characteristic is actually fear of public speaking. So sometimes the context is just the same as the characteristic, but not always. I'm going to show you another example a bit later. Location. We need to know where that karma is. And what I mean by that is where it's located on the energy body. So we'll go through some maps of the karmic personality spectrum in a bit. And we need to know the weight of the karma. How severe is that karma? Light, medium, heavy. So these are the things that we need to focus on to understand before we can burn somebody's karma away. Now, just by the way, in Network Healers currently, we are only just starting to implement this, really. We have been burning people's karma away for quite some time, but we're just, it probably was happening in quite a slow manner and less efficient manner that it could. And we're just starting to implement this now in Network Healers. And it's going to be an evolution as we implement some of these ideas. So as part of that, to go into those in a bit more detail, let's just have a little reminder about energy psychology and emotion chakras. Now, you've seen this before, of course, but just as a quick reminder, in energy psychology, the 5 emotion regulating chakras, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacral, and the root chakra. And they govern a set of characteristics each. So the throat chakra is communication of self-expression. The heart chakra is attachment to loving relationships. The solar plexus chakra is identification with beliefs. The sacral chakra is all about reproduction and parental care. And the root chakra, of course, is safety, security, and survival. Now, each one of those chakras can access any of the emotions. So on the left, you've got the material body emotional system, the limbic system, the endocrine system. That just symbolizing activating the emotional response in the material body. Any one of those chakras can activate any of the emotions. So the throat chakra can activate love. It can activate fear, anger, jealousy, rage, pleasure. It can activate all of these emotions, and each chakra can do the same thing, because karma is about emotion plus context. And talking of karma now, this is to remind you here that each karma can be categorized in these categories of chakra. And each chakra, therefore, can have positive or negative karma. That's the red and the black is symbolizing the positive or negative karma. So the throat chakra can produce positive karma and it can produce negative karma. And some of these examples I just gave you was with both positive and negative, of course. So this is how we can categorize the particular karma that we're talking about. And don't forget, this is in a healing partner. One of our healing partners in the clinic, and we're trying to categorize some of their karma because we want to burn their karma away. And just also to remind you, we don't necessarily, on the right there, you've got some further categories. You don't necessarily need this at the moment for categorizing the karma, but just to remind you that some karmas you can call basic karmas, some you can call moral intent karmas, and some you can call reciprocal karmas. Now, the basic ones are the more primitive ones that evolved originally millions of years ago, and still about today, of course. They just evolved first. And then as animals started to live in more social groups, moral intent karmas started to evolve, and that keeps a group together over a species wide, keeps them working together in a cohesive unit. And then reciprocal karmas, even more advanced karmas evolved. And these are very social driven karmas. And I think that actually only humans have these. Now, this is an area for research, of course, but my feeling is that only humans have reciprocal karmas. They're very sophisticated social karmas. So you pick your category. You've got your karma, and you pick your category. And don't forget about this balance scale, where you've got the characteristic, you've got the balance point in the middle, and either side, if you go too far, either side, you've got too much of something or you've got too little of something. That's the balance scale of the characteristic. It's always good to bear that in mind because we're trying to get people back to the balance point, whether it's through self-healing or whether it's through burning their karma away. Because the positive emotions are felt in the center, balance point, the middle way. You know, the middle way, that phrase, the middle way, is a famous phrase. And I don't know who came up with it first. It's part of Buddhism, I think, the middle way. But this middle path is such a famous cultural, spiritual phrase. So, you know, intuitively, maybe not all the details of the biology has been known, but it's been known about for a long, long, long time that the middle way is the way towards self-realization, spiritual evolution. So in this balance scale, all the negative emotions are felt further out to the sides. And as you can see, the heaviest karma, the black colors, is right out towards the edges. Then you go into the browns and then the grays, and then the positive emotions are felt in them. So we've categorized our karma, not our karma, our healing partner's karma. We've categorized it successfully. Now we want to weigh it. And once you get the hang of this is very, very easy, of course. It's just literally trying to understand the severity of the emotion that it generates. So for example, the question we want to be asking, if we want to know the weight of the karma, very easy, because how much emotion does it generate? Now I say it's very easy, but it's very easy to tell if you can know how much emotion is being felt. So we have to get this information from the healing partners, of course. And some people may not actually be ready to look at their emotions and start to tell us how much emotion they're feeling. So I say it's easy to understand, not always easy in practice. But this is the question we need to ask. How much emotion do you feel? And if it's light karma that's burning, then it's going to be, the emotion generated is going to be quite easy to brush off. It's not going to really cause that person much problems. That's gray color in the energy body. And if we go to medium karma, well, this is quite painful, to be honest, and it's difficult to shake off. And that is a brown color in the energy body. And then we've got heavy karma, which is horrendous. This is the worst type of suffering, really. Terrible emotional pain, completely incapacitating sometimes. And that is a black color in the energy body. Now, we are calling them light, medium, and heavy just to make it simple. That's just 3 nice and easy categories, but really it's a spectrum. It's not that simple in reality. There's no clear line between these categories, as you can see on the color chart there. It's a spectrum of color. Now, you might ask, how do we know? How are we going to know somebody's karma levels? Well, we do have to ask the healing partner. So this is in the clinic we're talking about. So we have to ask them, really. Now that's easy for some people and more difficult for other people. So this has to be on a case-by-case basis. Some people are just not yet ready to look inside themselves to see what emotions they're feeling. This is a fairly high level of introspection. And, this is great for their self-healing journey, because introspection and looking inside is a massive part of the self-healing journey. And trying to encourage people to do that, whatever stage they're at in spiritual evolution, is so important. But having said that, you've got to take it easy with some people. You've got to go at their own pace. You can't force this on people, of course. So it's on a case-by-case basis, and we need to glean as much information about what emotions they're feeling as possible. And the rest is all about intuition, of course. I'm going to talk more about intuition later on. Any questions so far? Right. Yeah. So, that's a very good question. And the first question is that we can burn people's karma from previous lifetimes, because we're targeting, in fact, we're mainly targeting the previous life karma, because we're targeting the energy body. But it's just made me realize that actually we can target current life karma as well, which I haven't put in this lesson. So that's another thing that maybe we can add in the future. But mainly we are targeting the karmic personality spectrum, which is in the energy body, which is past life karma. So in answer to your second question, yes, they will keep producing it because of the conditioning patterns in the lower mind. Now, you can wipe somebody's slate clean in terms of their tank of karma in the energy body, but there will be current life karma still burning, unless we burn that away as well. But even if you burn all of their negative karma away, they will always be producing it, because the lower mind, that's what it does. So the conditioning patterns in the lower mind will be set, and it will produce a mind stream. And that mind stream will be constantly producing more karma, because that's how the biology of karma works. Karma is constantly being produced and constantly being burnt all the time in emotional reactions and thought patterns. Okay, so next. So we've weighed it, we've categorized it, we've weighed it. Now we want to locate it. So we've talked about this before in the anatomy lesson. So this is just a quick, we didn't spend much time on it, but this is a quick reminder of where the karma is actually stored in the energy body. Because it's stored in the outside layers of the energy body, in the energy body skin. And the karmic personality spectrum is actually laid out on the surface of the energy body. So that's the same as saying somebody's personality is laid out on the skin of the energy body. And the root chakra karma occupies this space around the back of the head. And that's actually because it's all centered around the bindu. These layers are all centered around the bindu, because if you remember, karma gets drawn through the bindu and into the lower mind organs for processing. So it's all kind of centered around the bindu, and the root chakra karmas evolved first in our evolution. Therefore, they're centered right close to the root chakra. And then the sacral chakra karmas are a bit further out. So you can see how the karmas evolved one after another through our evolutionary history. And they evolved, as the sacral karmas evolved, then they sort of occupied a space a bit further out. And then the solar plexus chakra karmas a bit further out, again, around mid-body region. And then the heart chakra karmas a bit further out again. And then the throat chakra karmas right out to the extremities, the furthest away from the bindu. because they're the most advanced karmas, or the most sophisticated karmas. So we can actually start to locate it. The more we know about this karma, the better the energy healing will be. So we can know roughly where it is on the energy body. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So it's the opposite way around from the chakra order up the spine. Yeah. But it's different to that. And it's the other way around because the bindu is where it's centered from, and the bindu is at the top. And basically the karmas are being drawn through the bindu. So the karmas are all over the energy body, and they got little vessels. I'm going to show you a picture of this in a minute. But they got little vessels that all lead to the bindu, because they go through the bindu to be processed by the lower mind, because the bindu is a gluing point between different energy frameworks. And so it's all centered around the bindu. And the way they evolved, these different karmas, different types of karmas, the root chakra karmas evolved first. So you could imagine that they just went as close as possible to the bindu. That's kind of how evolution works. It takes the path of least resistance. So they started gathering, being stored around the bindu. But then as more karmas evolved, they started spreading and being stored a bit further away, and then a bit further away. So naturally, then you get to the throat chakra karma, the most advanced karmas that evolved pretty much when humans evolved. They were at the extremities, the furthest away from the bindu possible. So that's what causes this kind of inversion. The inversion is only because the bindu's up there at the top. That's all. If the bindu was down there at the base of the spine, then it would be the same. It would be the same direction as the chakras. So now we know roughly where the karma is located on the energy body. Now I put the colors on there, didn't I? But that's not how it looks. I just wanted to show the different chakra colors. It looks a bit more like this. It looks a bit more like these splodges, red and black splodges, black, grays and browns and different shades of red. And each one of those little splodges is actually a personality characteristic, a clump of karma. It looks a little bit like mold, doesn't it, I think? So it looks a bit more like that when you actually look at it. And of course, it doesn't have those white lines either. I just put them in there to show you the different segments, of course. So actually, it looks a bit more like that when you actually look at the energy body. And then on top of that, there is a film of blueness. So it doesn't even look like that. It looks a bit more like that. Now you can just about see underneath the blue. You can still see the splodges of karma. You can also see a grid pattern as well. And the grid pattern is those vessels that are running from the karmic splodges, the karmic character traits, all the way to the bindu. And by the way, this grid pattern has been noted in various other cultures as well, and systems of healing. So let's just look a little bit closer, because the more we can understand, the more we can know about the karma and how it's stored, the better our targeting will be when we want to get rid of it. So we've got karmic cells in the surface of the energy body. This is a very detailed close-up image of the energy body skin, and it shows it's got little karmic cells. These are little reservoirs of karma. Still magnetic energy, of course, but they're little cells. And you can see here you've got a positive personality trait and a negative one there as well. And the negative ones, both types will start in the center with the heavier karma, and then the karma will get lighter and lighter and lighter as you go out to the edges of these splodges. And you can see that the positive one is deep dark red in the center. That's the heavy positive karma. And then the shades of red get lighter and lighter and lighter. Same with the negative one, with the black, the browns and the grays around the outside. So now let's take a transverse look of this. And that means a section of the energy skin looking at it from the side. So you can see that protective layer on top, which is the bluish tinge. And then underneath that, you've got the karmic grid. These are the cells in which karma actually get held. And then you've got these layers of karma. These are the personality traits we've just been looking at. looking at it from the side now. And then you've got these vessels from the personality trait all the way going to the bindu. And that forms that grid pattern that we tend to see on the surface of the energy body sometimes. Now think about these layers in the karmic grid. Think about these layers a little bit like a tree. Now, you know how the rings of a tree are formed. You get another ring for each year, approximately, that the tree has been living for. Well, it's a little bit like that, these karma layers. Each layer is a life or an incarnation. And this is, once we produce all the karma in the current life, that goes into the current life storage in the lower mind. And then after the end of the incarnation, that gets transferred to the energy body. We've talked about this a lot in anatomy. That emotional time after somebody has passed, where they're looking through their life and looking through their emotions and the karma that they might have produced. That's the karma being transferred from the current life to the energy body, which is past life karma. And that gets laid in these layers in the karmic personality spectrum. And the newer lives get laid on top, and the older lives are down at the bottom there. And that is the karmic personality spectrum. That is the personality which is dragged through each incarnation, ready for the next incarnation to start burning anew or being processed and generating a new personality. Okay, any questions? Yeah, well, so basically I think that a karma cycle has a lifespan, you could say. And for example, the heaviest karma lasts the longest. But the heaviest karma gets burnt, and then it gets turned into lighter karmas, because what happens is that each lifetime it gets lighter and lighter, but it still originates from heavy karma. So and that's because the mind stream carries on thinking and produces more karma on the same subject. Like arachnophobia, I mean that might be not a good example here, because there are some karmas which perpetuate for a long period of time. But most karmas say you're producing heavy karmas, and the next incarnation you might be burning that heavy karma. It's producing emotional reactions. It's producing a mind stream, but it's lighter. You're feeling that emotion. You're burning that heavy karma, but you might be producing more brown, medium karma instead. This is what the rings on the surface of the energy body. This is what a personality splodge. You get the heavy karma in the middle, and then you get lighter karma ring around it, and then a even lighter one. That's the process happening there that I just described. And I think that approximately, now I don't know, this is not exact, but I've always been given the information that heavy karma takes about 21 lifetimes to get rid of in the system. So, and this is, and if you do remember your past lives, it's fascinating, because you can see how the personality changes over time. And your personality in a lifetime 3,000 years ago is going to be very different to your personality in this life. But you might see some similarities, but a lot of the things would have disappeared, because that's how the karma has a lifespan, and then your personality changes over time. It's a bit similar to how people's personality change in one lifetime as well. It's a constantly shifting and evolving thing, isn't it? And I think that heavy karma has a lifetime of around 21 lifetimes. But yes, so I think it comes from the oldest levels first of all. But that's not including current life karma, because current life karma is constantly burning all the time. But in the energy body, it's coming from the older lives first. Yeah. It's almost like a column of liquid which is getting drained from the bottom, you could say. So, just to remind you, this is the information that we needed if we want to burn somebody's karma away. Emotion plus context. Chakra category, a characteristic if it's different from the context. A location on the energy body, and a weight of the karma, the severity of the karma. And here's an example for you. And I'm going to take an example here which is quite topical, and it exists. It's very prevalent in the world right now because it's causing some major conflicts, some major wars, and that is fighting over territory. So here's an example. The people who are fighting these wars over territory specifically, that's going to be karma that's burning within them. So I'm going to use the example of anger. Now, there's going to be lots of emotions to do with it, but I'm just choosing the example of anger. So the emotion plus context is anger plus territory. That's the context around the anger. The chakra category is the solar plexus chakra because it's identification with beliefs. So the belief is that is mine. That's the belief. I believe that territory, that land is my land. That is a belief, of course. It's a wrong belief, isn't it? Because nobody owns anything in this universe. Because all ownership is in the false identity. It's a false self. So it's not real. But that's the category of chakra, category of karma. And then the characteristic. Well, in this case, the characteristic is actually different from the context because it's possessiveness. You could say that is the characteristic that we're talking about here. And then the location, if we go back to our little diagrams there, it's around the mid-body section. And as an example, I've just put it's in the lower back. And then the weight of the karma here is heavy. This is heavy karma. If people are willing to fight over this and risk their lives and die for this concept, then that's heavy karma that's burning. So that's an example that's happening in the world right now, but it gives you an idea of how to get this information or write this information down. So what do we do with this information about karma if we want to burn someone's karma? Well, it's non-intention healing that we're talking about here. So it's up to our higher minds to do this, of course. And what do we do when we want higher mind healing to happen? We write it on the Structuring the Healing Journey form. Structuring the Healing Journey form holds everything for that person. Now, I know there's a partner record form. That's more a record of meetings with the person. The Structuring the Healing Journey form is really planning out their healing journey. So anything that we want to do, like burning their karma away, we need to put it on this form. But also we have to wait and see as well, because this is non-intention healing. It's up to our higher minds. And sometimes there might be reasons why we can't burn their karma away. We talked about that last week, didn't we? If it's part of their life plan to have to feel that emotion or go through a particular life lesson learning process. So we have to wait and see, obviously, to see if it actually happens. Okay, that's it for burning other people's karma away. Any questions about that section before I move on? No, that is absolutely true. Yeah, so you can wipe somebody's slate clean before they go into a new incarnation. And do you remember we did this, you can also do this in between incarnations. And do you remember a few years ago, we were doing this consciously with various people and wiping their karma away before they go into another incarnation. It's like wiping the slate clean, isn't it? But one thing to note here is that I don't think we were wiping all the karma away or wiping all the negative karma away, because I don't think that is what happens. And it's down to our higher minds to what degree they actually do it, because you don't want to wipe somebody's personality away. So I think most likely it was heavy karma that we were burning away. All right, so should we have a quick break now? And it's a bit early, but we're in between sections, so it might be a good idea to just stop now. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes then. So let's move on then. So far we've been talking about burning other people's karma. One of the biggest applications in network healers, for sure. And that applies to clinic and health flow. Although in clinic, it's the more personalized, customized service that we're actually talking about in this lesson. But also part of network healers is self-healing, of course. Self-healing is part of the clinic. Clinic is self-healing plus energy healing. And you can burn your own karma through self-healing. So those time frames that we just talked about, 21 lifetimes approximately to get for heavy karma to work its way out of somebody's system. Well, actually, you can shorten that time through self-healing. So let's talk about that. Burning karma in a self-healing capacity, because this is what we're going to be part of what we're going to be teaching to our healing partners. And we've talked about some of these concepts before, but let's go into them in a little bit more detail. So karma yoga. Karma yoga has been known about for thousands of years. We're not making that word up. Karma yoga is a type of yoga that's been known about for thousands of years. And it is the yoga of action, or more specifically, selfless action. So when people are performing acts in their life which are there to help other people without any personal benefit, then that burns karma, burns their own karma. It actually burns past life karma, not current life karma. And I don't know the reason for that, but it's past life karma that's burning, and it doesn't burn heavy karma. Now, the more research goes into this one day, the more we'll understand, obviously. But there must be a biological explanation for this. If you think about karma emotion, why it evolved, or let's talk about moral intent karmas, because that illustrates the point here. Moral intent karmas evolved to keep the cohesion in a social group of animals, right? For example, guilt is an emotion which is generated by a moral intent karma. You do things to hurt other people, you end up getting guilt karma produced, and whether it's in this lifetime or in next lifetimes, you get a lot of guilt coming through. It's a kind of a regulation system for a species as a whole, or a social group of animals. Now, you could say that karma yoga is almost like the reverse of that. It's almost like an encouragement system to treat other people kindly. And that also helps, it's also got an evolutionary benefit for a species. It also helps a group of people or animals to live together in a more cohesive way. Because the more somebody helps other people, the better their life gets, because it's burning away their negative karma. Now, there's going to be some biological impact, some biological reason for it in the mind and the brain that's allowing for this process, which maybe we can find out one day. But it's been known about intuitively for thousands of years. But it burns past life karma and not heavy karma, unfortunately. So the next one is deep objectless meditation. This burns current life karma. So deep objectless meditation is that type of meditation where it's a very advanced form of meditation, objectless meditation, as we know now. It's sitting in your own awareness, not focused on anything, but in pure concentration. So this is the type of meditation where you actually are sitting down and eyes closed, and you're in a deep state of meditation, a deeply absorbed state. So this is not, for example, task-orientated meditation, or it's not subject-object meditation. This is when you're really sat down and you're in a deep state, and you are not focused on anything but in pure concentration. That actually burns current life karma, but not heavy karma again, unfortunately. Now, the reason why this happens, the only thing I can think of for the moment is that it's an incentive for spiritual evolution. It's an incentive for self-realization, because it's almost encouraging people to meditate. It's almost encouraging people to find the true self. And that's why people's life gets better and better the more they meditate. But again, not heavy karma, unfortunately. So the only way to burn heavy karma is these two methods. It's either you have to feel the emotion, and what's that? That's suffering, isn't it? That's going through a period of suffering by burning that heavy karma. Or energy healing, i.e. a healer or a higher mind helping somebody else by burning their heavy karma. And a quick reminder about the Aya Healing Pyramid. Of course, the emotional layer. We teach this stuff in the Aya Healing Pyramid, don't we? The emotional layer and the self-healing techniques we group together, and we call them karma emotion work. This is part of the pyramid course, and this is what we want to be teaching our healing partners as well, because in the clinic we want to encourage them to either do the pyramid course or to start taking on board these concepts just from the assigned healer. And in that course, we teach 3 different exercises when it comes to karma emotion work. We teach emotional meditation, we're teaching karma yoga, and we're teaching deep objectless meditation. And we've just talked about karma yoga and deep objectless meditation, but emotional meditation itself doesn't actually burn karma. Emotional meditation is more about stopping producing more karma. That's why it's a self-healing technique. So karma yoga and objectless meditation will actually burn away or open the tap to the karma tank and let it drain out. You can look at it that way if you like. Emotional meditation is more about meditating, stopping the mind from thinking, therefore stopping the production of karma. So it deserves a mention in this lesson, but it's part of self-healing. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so now we'll move on to this idea, the karmic personality spectrum chart. Now, this is not yet implemented in Network Healers, but we're going to implement it. And these particular bits of information or knowledge that we need about karma, we can take that further and we can start to actually chart the karma. And then we can build a picture of their karmic personality spectrum. Now, it's not implemented yet because we're only just starting with this, to be honest, but then eventually we can actually bring in a chart where we can chart their karma. And, to start with, that will be just the healer starting to do that. After talking to the healing partner. But one day this could be part of self-healing techniques. When it becomes more popular, when it becomes a mainstream thing, everyone's going to get into it at some point. And, people can be charting their own karmic personality spectrums. And it will become part of psychotherapy and psychology as well, eventually. And then people can actually start looking at their spiritual evolution just through their karmic personality spectrum chart. So let's have a look at an example of what I'm talking about here. So it could be something like this. So you've got all these different columns, and the names of the columns are at the top. You've got the category on the left, and that's the chakra category. I haven't put the names of the chakras in there because you can just tell by the color spectrum. And then you've got the characteristic. So you can put the characteristic down there. I've left space for 3 just in this example. And then you can write down all the emotions to do with that particular characteristic. And then you can chart the karma that is producing those emotions. And on this example, there's 3 columns for those 3 characteristics. So let me give you an example. So I'm not going to run through all of these, but I'll run through about 3 to show you what it's like. So let's start at the top there. Fear of public speaking. So the category is the throat chakra, fear of public speaking. So this is one of my old ones, isn't it? Not being able to speak. It's the throat chakra category, and the characteristic is fear of public speaking. And the emotions that it used to generate were fear, anger, shame, and despair. So I've labeled them 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. And just moving along a little bit, we can actually chart them. So it's in the first karma box there, karma characteristic number 1. And I've charted them. So fear, 1A. Well, that was horrible, absolutely debilitating. So that was kind of heavy. So I put that down there in the black section, 1A. 1B, anger, not so bad. There was a little bit of anger towards it, just the fact that it was happening. So I put that in the grey. So basically this is weighing the emotions and charting it at the same time. 1C, shame. There was a lot of shame. So I think that was in the medium section, so brownish. And then despair, even more despair sometimes. And so 1D is put sort of in between the heavy and the medium there. So that provides a record. At a snapshot in time, that is somebody's chart of that particular characteristic and the karma that it generates. Go back there. So the next example, let's talk about grief of losing a son. So the category is the heart chakra. So it's in the green section. because the heart chakra is attachment to loving relationships. So that's the category of grief, where grief lies. So the emotions generated, or two of the emotions that were generated was grief, of course, and guilt. Now, guilt is a very common emotion that goes along with grief. It's a kind of a nonsensical type guilt when viewed from the outside, but it tends to get triggered along with the grief process. It's perfectly normal. So that's 2A and 2B there. You can see grief of losing someone. 2A, grief. 2B, guilt. Oh, sorry, there's another one there. 2C, sadness, of course. Yes. So there's 3 there that we've written in. 2C is sadness. So moving along. And it's in the category or the column karma characteristic number 2, because it was the number 2 one there. And you can see 2A, 2B, and 2C, all in heavy karma. And this was from talking to, of course, and feeling and getting the information about how strong those emotions were. So that was heavy karma. Grief, guilt, and sadness, all in the heavy section. So they're charted. And let's just do one more. And this is another one of my old ones as well, fear of judgment. And hopefully you can see that. And on the top, the number 1 of the solar plexus category in yellow, fear of judgment. So the characteristic is fear of judgment. The emotions to do with that was 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D. So fear, anger, guilt, and shame. And as you can see, I've charted them right next to it there. 1A and 1C were heavy. And then 1B was the lightest in the grey section. And then 1D, a little bit heavier, but still in the light category. So 1A was fear, that's heavy. C was guilt, that was really heavy. And then 1B, anger, that was light. And then 1D was shame. Well, everybody is slightly different. In terms of the last incarnation, when somebody's ready for self-realization, everybody is slightly different as to what they come into that incarnation with, what they're holding still. And some people still have a little bit of heavy karma left. And it's still, in terms of the bigger picture, it's still a tiny, tiny amount, which is what I think you're referring to. There's a tiny amount left of karma, but you do have to have some karma left to go through Kundalini awakening. You can't get rid of it beforehand, because the whole idea is to balance it. Yeah. So yeah, some people still have heavy karma left to burn in a last incarnation, but some people don't, and some people sail through the Kundalini awakening process and self-realization because they'd got rid of all their heavy karma beforehand, and they just had either light or medium karmas in that last incarnation before they go through it. Okay, so that's the chart that at some point we're going to bring into Network Healers. But really, this is like a snapshot of the personality. This is introspection at a high level, really, isn't it? And this will help people's self-healing journey to know about that we're doing it for them. And then eventually, one day, maybe bring it into self-healing as well and get people to do it themselves. And imagine where this could go in the future. Just imagine having a full chart of your own karma levels. This is way into the future, but having a full chart of your own karma levels, and then working through it as you go through your life, removing all your karma. I mean, this is spiritual evolution on steroids, isn't it? This is supercharging it, because most people have to go through a sort of trial and error. I mean, so the way it's been done so far is just that the lower mind go through their life on a trial and error basis and sort of learning in a fairly slow manner. But if we can bring all this stuff into the view of the lower mind, then it's going to go so much quicker. And then eventually, at the end of somebody's life, they can do their life review before they even pass on. So it's going to supercharge the global awakening. Now, you may ask these few questions. Can we know what karma is present if the healing partner cannot tell us? So, the best way is to find out from the healing partner what emotions they're feeling, in what situations, in what context, and write it down. But what if they are not ready for that? Because many people are not ready to face their emotions, and they're not ready to talk about their emotions. And it's a journey. The self-healing journey is a journey. And sometimes you have to start where people can start. And quite often just sitting down for healing is where you start. Introducing self-healing techniques, breath work and stuff is quite a big thing for some people. So you can see this should happen, this karmic or emotional discussion should happen somewhere along the healing journey. So for some people, they're not going to be ready to start talking about their emotions, but that's okay. Can we still tell what the karma is doing? And how do we know if the karma has been burnt afterwards? That's another question, because we can't get that from the healing partner. Well, I suppose in one way you can if the emotions start getting lighter, but it's sometimes not all that easy, because there's a lot of conditioning patterns in the lower mind that are producing more emotions. So it's sometimes difficult to tell. So can we know ourselves if the karma has been burnt? And can we know where the karma came from? Now this is talking about either current life or past life karma. Can we know ourselves as healers where this karma that we're talking about may have come from or originated from in a previous lifetime? So of course, again, intuition is key here. That's why intuition is so important in network healers and in most therapies and practices, to be honest with you, but especially in network healers, intuition is key. Now, let me give you a couple of examples here. So this is an example of some visions that got quite a few years ago now, maybe even 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, where, we would be trying to burn somebody's karma away and trying to figure out what karma they had and to what severity it was, and we tried to monitor it over a period of time. And in some cases, we definitely saw it going down over time. And in fact, in 1 or 2 cases, we even got the confirmation from the person as they started feeling less and less of that emotion. And this is also to show you that visions can come through in various different ways. Now, you might not always see the actual energy body. You might not always see the karmic personality spectrum on the skin of the energy body. Your higher mind can give you intuition in various different ways, in metaphorical formats sometimes, or sometimes in images and pictures, a bit like this, basically. Yeah, I think like those flags, perhaps. You might see like 3 flags with black on, and then you'd later see 2 flags and then 1 flag. It was a bit like that, wasn't it? Yeah. So that shows how important intuition is to network healers. So it's very important to develop our intuition skills, which is why there's 2 lessons on intuition in this course, which we've done both of them. Okay, and lastly, we want to talk about spiritual evolution. And this is really just to mention the whole reason why we're doing all of this. It's easy to lose focus sometimes of the bigger picture, isn't it? Why are we burning people's karma away? To make them feel better. Well, yeah, but healing is all about spiritual evolution. Healing is all about getting to self-realization, the highest form of healing. What healing means to the universe, to the source, which is why we all exist. And karma is the key, because karma is what keeps us in the material plane, suffering away. Karma is what stops us on the spiritual journey. It's what stops people from starting the spiritual evolution journey. And it's also what slows people down along the spiritual evolution journey. So understanding karma is almost like the key to spiritual evolution and the key to healing. And knowing how to remove it, therefore, is key. And knowing how to teach people to remove it themselves or teach people to stop producing it is also key. So there we are. Any questions about that? I'm not sure I see the dilemma. Maybe we could come back to that. But let me start with the first part, and maybe we can go into we'll travel into your dilemma. So let's talk about it in terms of just how karma works normally and naturally. And the first part, I think, was the guilt bit. And when somebody acts in a certain way that harms others, karmas are produced and with a particular severity. But it's not necessarily in that incarnation that they will definitely feel it. It might be in quite often, it's going to be in future incarnations. So that's why I think that you can get people who go about their lives causing all sorts of harm to all sorts of people and without a care in the world. But they are storing up that karma for the future. It's a cause and effect thing. They're storing up that emotional memory, which is going to have to be paid back in a way. And that's just a biological system. That's what's going to happen. So it's only in future lifetimes that they might start feeling that guilt. And a future personality might be very different from the current personality. So it might be guilt-ridden personality, a completely different type of, the environment that somebody grows up in shapes their personality along with karma. So an extroverted personality that doesn't care about anything may in the next incarnation be a very introverted personality that cares too much about everything, and they may be guilt-ridden or something and burning off that karma. And so that's the first part of your question. And then, sorry, could you remind me about the dilemma bit? Yeah, so that's why we always, when we teach karma, we're always saying that it's not about punishment, and it's not about judgment, and those are the myths of karma. And we make that part of every single lesson, that it's not that. It's not some higher power which is to be punished for something. You need some higher power which is dishing out punishment, and that doesn't exist. This is a biological system of cause and effect. It's like, if you fall over, you'll hurt yourself. It's just as simple as that, really. And quite a lot of karmas, in fact, most karmas are more along those lines. They've got nothing to do with morality, even. So, survival fears like being afraid of monsters or being afraid of spiders, or, these type of fears are nothing to do with morality, are they? But they are a karma. It's just a cause and effect. If you think about something, it's going to cause a future emotion. Moral karmas, they are moral in nature, but only because they are designed to keep a society functioning together. It's a biological function. It's nothing to do with right and wrong. Right and wrong doesn't exist at all in the universe, because right and wrong is a duality. So moral karmas are not designed. There's no punishment or I know there's a grey area there, but there's no punishment or judgment involved. It's just making a wrong decision and facing the consequences. That's kind of it, really. There's no higher moral judgment. There's no right and wrong about it. Therefore, it's not punishment or judgment. Have we got anything else on that, or shall I move on to something else? I was going to talk a little bit about schedules and calendar stuff coming up, but has anyone got any more questions on that or comments to make? So let me just run through a few different things that's going to happen over the next couple of months, let's say, so people's got an idea in their mind of what's happening. We're coming towards the end now of the theory part of the course. So today was karma. Next week is going to be the collective mind part 2. So that's going to be the astral planes. And then after that, we're on 2 lessons of case studies. And then after that, we've got role playing to do, which is going to be a case of pretending that you have a healing partner, and we're going to come up with a imaginary case of somebody, and you've got to interview them and get all the right information, get all the right knowledge from them, fill out the forms, the joining forms, part 1 and 2, and then afterwards, after you've interviewed this imaginary healing partner, then go away and to fill out a structuring the healing journey form. So it's nothing at all that you haven't done before in previous lessons. It's just putting it into practice in a practice session, in a practice meeting. So that will be, I think, on the 6th or the week of the 6th of July, that one. And then after that, the 13th will be the exam. Although I say exam, it's not going to be a sit-down exam or anything. I'm going to spend that lesson on the 13th explaining the exam. And then you're going to have some time to go away and do it in your own time, basically. And we're not sure how long yet, but plenty of time. It's not a rushed thing or anything like that. So the exam is going to be a bit like the assignments, a bit like the assignments that you've seen before, just put all together in one final exam, a mixture of quizzes and short answers and long answers and that type. So it's an open book exam, you can call that. That means the exam is you take it away and you've got all the notes, you've got all the videos, you've got all the information of the whole theory course. So you've got everything that you can access to go away and fill out the exam. That's the 13th. And then I guess you could say we break for summer holidays, which in a way we are following the term times of university term schedules. That's kind of what we're doing. But of course, in reality, everything still kind of goes on. But the Monday lessons will stop, of course. But then we'll have like 6 weeks or so to consolidate things. So any assignments that are not completed, there's some time to finish them. There's some time to do the exam, and there's some time to prepare a new Network Healers Hub through that time as well. And then we go into, that's August as well. And then we go into September, where we will be starting a new FASTRAC 26, with a new set of students. And anybody is still welcome to keep joining the lessons, of course. You can do them again if you want, it's not a problem at all. But in September, we'll also be aiming to start the research project. That's another thing that we'll be preparing over the summer as well. So the new hub will be, the new Healers Hub will be taking on, and Health Flow as well, actually. There'll be Clinic and Health Flow taking on participants from the research project. And we're aiming to start that probably in September. That's about all I can think of. Anything else to add, anyone? There's no homework this week, no. Or there wasn't last week either. Hope everyone's all right with that. Okay, lovely. Let's call it a day then. Okay, see you next week.